Today's discussion is about Buddhi Yoga. Okay, as you know, the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called Sankhya Yoga. So the word Sankhya comes from the root san, means complete, and the kya meaning to know. So Sankhya means complete analytical knowledge of something. So the Sankhya Darsana, which is one of the six philosophical treatises in Indian philosophy, makes an analytical view of the entities in cosmos. It lists 25 entities. What are these? First called Pancha Mahabhuta. So what are these Pancha Mahabhuta? Earth, water, fire, air, and sky. Then Pancha Tanmatra. So what is Tanmatra? The five abstract qualities of matter. Okay, so five abstract quality of the matter. So that is called Pancha Tanmatra. What are these? Taste, touch, smell, sound, and sight. Then Pancha Karmendriya. All of you know that Pancha Karmendriya means five working senses. Then Pancha Jnanendriya. What are the Pancha Jnanendriya? You know that Pancha Jnanendriya, five no working senses. Okay, what are the working senses of Pancha Jnanendriya? You know that? Yeah, Pancha Jnanendriya. Okay. Then there is something is called mind. Then Ahankara. What is the Ahankara? The entity created by the evolution of Mahat. Mahat means intellect, we can say. So Mahat, what is that Mahat? Mahat, the intellect created by the evolution of Prakriti. Again, what is Prakriti? Prakriti means we can say, Prakriti is made of three gunas. What is that? Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic. Apart from all these 24, there is something is called Purusa, or we call it soul, which is, treats to enjoy Prakriti and gets bond in it. So this is the theory. This is the all the 25 tattvas given by Sankhya philosophy. You see, in from the beginning of this chapter in Bhagavad Gita, of the in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna treats to Sri Krishna that he is unable to cope with his current situation, so where he has to kill his elders and teachers. Then he refused to take part in such a battle and requests Sri Krishna to be his spiritual teacher and guide him on the proper path of action. Then the Supreme Lord starts imparting divine knowledge to Arjuna. He begins with the immortal nature of soul, which is eternal and impossible. Death only destroys the physical body, but the soul continues the journey. Just a person changes his old cloth and wear a new ones. The soul keeps changing bodies from one lifetime to another lifetime. Then Sri Krishna reminded Arjuna that his social responsibility as a warrior is to fight for upholding righteousness. So he explaining that performing one's social duty is a virtuous act that can take him to the celestial abodes. At first, Sri Krishna tries to motivate Arjuna at a medium level. Then he moves deeper and starts explaining to Arjuna the signs of work. He asks Arjuna to perform his deed without any attachment to their fruit. This science of working without desire for rewards is called the yoga of the intellect, or we call it Buddhi Yoga. He further advised that intellect should be used to control the desire for rewards from work. By working with such intent, the bondage creating karmas get transformed into bondage breaking karmas, and a state beyond unhappiness can be attained. So Sri Krishna, had just explained to Arjuna another form of Sankhya, which is the analytical knowledge of the immortal soul. He now says that he is going to reveal the science of work. Is going to reveal the science of working without desire for rewards. This requires, detachment from the fruit of action. Such a detachment come by practicing discrimination with the intellect. Hence, Sri Krishna has, interestingly called it Buddhi Yoga, or the yoga of intellect. So uh, Krishna says, "Esa tu avihita sankhye buddhir yoger trimam shrunu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandhanam prahasyase." He goes on to explain how the intellect plays an important role in, bringing the mind to a state of detachment. According to Purana, there are 8.4 million species of life in the existence. The species below human beings, like animals, birds, fish, insects, etc., they do not have an intellect as we human do. Yet they also perform commonplace activities such as eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Human beings have been blessed with a faculty of knowledge for a higher purpose, so that they may utilize it to elevate themselves. If humans utilize their intellect merely for doing the animalistic activities, for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, in a deluxe way, it is a misuse of human form. For example, if someone making eating as the primary pleasure of life, then the body of a pig become more suitable for such a person, and thus the individual receives a pig's body in the next life. If someone makes sleeping as the goal of his life, then God deemed that body of a polar bear is more suitable for such an activity, and alerts it in succeeding life. So, the great danger before us is that we may not get a human birth in next life. The Veda states in Kenopanishad it says, "Oh human being, the human birth is a rare opportunity. If you do not utilize it to achieve your goal, you will suffer a great ruin." Again, the states again in Kathopanishad it says, if you do not strive for the God realization in this life, you continue to rotate in the 8.4 million species of life for many birth. However, hence we commence on the journey of spiritual practice. Then even if we do not complete the path in this life, God sees that our intention to do so exists. Therefore, He grants us the human birth again. Why? To enable you to continue from where we had left off. In this way, the avert that a great danger. Also, Sri Krishna says that no loss ever comes from attempt made on this spiritual path. This is because whatever material asset we accumulate in the present life have to be left behind at the time of death. But if we make any spiritual advancement on the path of yoga, God preserve it and give us the fruit in the next life, enabling us to start off from where we had left in our previous birth. Thus, having informed Arjuna about its benefits, Sri Krishna now begins instructing him about the science of working without attachment. So attachment is a function of the mind. So what is that attachment? Attachment is a function of mind. It is a manifestation is that the mind repeatedly runs towards the object of its attachment, which could be, person, which could be a person, sensual object, which could be prestige, bodily comfort, situations, and so on. So if through a new thought of some person or object repeatedly comes to the mind, it is a possible indication of the mind being attached to it. However, it is the mind that gets attached. Then why Sri Krishna bring the intellect into the topic of attachment? Is there any role of intellect in eliminating attachment? Within, you see, within our body, there is something is called antakaran. Okay, there are four antakaran. What is that? Mana, chitta, buddhi, and ahamkara. We call it mind. Mana, mind. Chitta, the storage of mind. Chitta, buddhi, that is intellect, and ahankara, and that is called ego. So these three are called antakarana. Okay. So in this subtle mission, the intellect is superior to the mind. It makes decision while the mind creates desire and it gets attached to the object, or affection is determined by the intellect. For instance, if intellect decides that money is the source of happiness, the mind hanker for wealth. If the intellect decides that prestige is the most important things in life, then mind crave for reputation and fame. In other words, the mind develops a desire in accordance with the knowledge of the intellect. Throughout the day, we human control our mind with the intellect. While sitting at home, we adopt informal posture in which the mind find comfort. Yet we adopt appropriate formal posture. While sitting in the office, it is not that the mind enjoys the formality of the office. Given its way, it would rather embrace the informality for home, informality of home. However, the intellect decides that formal behavior is necessary in the office. So the intellect controls the mind, and the people sit formally all day long, following the decorum of the workplace against the nature of the mind. Similarly, the mind does not enjoy doing office work. If it had its way, it would rather sit at home and watch television. But the intellect rules that working in office is necessary to earn a living. Therefore, the intellect again reigns in the nature tendency of the mind, the natural tendency of the mind. And the people who work 8 hours a day or longer. These examples illustrate that as a human being, our intellect possesses the ability to control the mind. Thus, we must cultivate the intellect with proper knowledge and use it to guide the mind in the proper direction. Buddhi Yoga is the art of detaching the mind from the fruit of action by developing a resolute decisions for the intellect that all work is meant for the pleasure of God. Such a person of resolute intellect cultivates single-minded focus on the goal and cross the path like a arrow released from the bow. This resolve becomes so strong in a higher state of sadhana that nothing can deter the sadhaka from treading the path. He or she think, even if there are millions of obstacles on my path, even if the whole world condemns me, even if I have to lay down on my life, I will still not give up my sadhana. But those whose intellect is many branched find their mind running in various directions. They are unable to develop in the focus of focus of mind that is required to treat it the path of God. So, as you know, the Vedas are divided into three sections. These are Karma Kanda, we call it ritualistic ceremonies, Jnana Kanda, knowledge section, and Upasana Kanda, that is devotional section. So, Karma Kanda section advocate the performance of ritualistic ceremonies for material rewards and promoting the celestial abilities. Those who seek sensual pleasure, glorifying this section of of the Vedas. The celestial bodies contain a higher order of material luxuries and offer greater facility for sensual enjoyment. But elevation to the heavenly bodies does not imply a concerned spiritual elevation. These celestial plans are also within a material universe, and having gone there, when one's account of good karmas get over, one again return to the planet Earth. People will limit understanding, seek for the heavenly abodies. Thinking of that is the whole pleasure of the Vedas. In this way, they continue transmigrating in the cycle of life and death without aspiring for God realization. However, those the spiritual wisdom do not make even heavenly their goal. So Mundok Upanishad states, uh, those who practice the conspicuous rituals prescribed in Vedas for enjoying the celestial pleasure for the higher abilities think themselves to be the scholar of spiritual scriptures. Uh, but in reality, they are foolish. They are like the blind leading the blind. Okay. Then then Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita chapter number 2, shloka number 47, Krishna says that is why karmanya vadhikarasti ma phalesu kadachana ma karma phala heturu bhurma te sangostva karmani. You have a right to perform your prescribed duties. Karmanya vadhikarasti ma phalesu kadachana, but you are not entitled to entitled to the fruits of your actions. Never consider yourself to be the case of the result of your activities, nor be attached to inaction. So what is meaning? Karmanya vadhikarasti ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturvuma te sangvastva karmani. Means you have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruit of your action. And never consider yourself to be the cause of the result of your activities, nor you attached to inaction. This is an extremely popular verse of the Bhagavad Gita, so much so that even most school children in India are familiar with it. It offers a deep insight into the proper spirit of work and is often quoted whenever the topic of Karma Yoga is discussed. The verse gives four instruction regarding the science of work. So here there are four instructions of the science of work. What is that? The first one, do your duty, but do not concern yourself with the result. The first, the first instruction gives that do your duty, but do not concern yourself with the result. The second instruction it gives, the fruit of your action are not for your enjoyment. What is that? The fruit of your actions are not for your enjoyment. This is the second. And the third instruction is that even while walking, even while working, give of the pride of doors. Actually, you give of the pride of doorship. Even while working, give up the pride of doorship. And the last one, do not be attached to inaction. What is that? Do not be attached to inaction. So let's try to understand the one instruction, what it means. First instruction is that do your duty, but do not concern yourself with the result. We have the right to do our duty, but the result are not depend only upon our efforts. A number of factors come into play in determining the result. Number of factors. What are they? Our efforts, in the second we can call it the destiny, means our past karmas, and we can, and then next the will of God, next the effort of others, the cumulative karmas of people involved, then the place and the situation, in a day-to-day life we call it the matter of luck, etc. So these are the different factors, okay, that determine our result. So you do your duty, but do not concern yourself with the result. If you done your duty properly, definitely the result will come to you. Okay, no need to wait for that. Okay, you no need to concern about your result. If you have done 100%, then definitely it will come to you. No need to worry about that. Now, if we become concerned for result, we will experience anxiety whenever they are not according to our expectation. So Sri Krishna advised Arjuna to give up concern for the result, and instead focus on the doing a good job. The fact is that when we are unconcerned about the result, we are able to focus entirely on our effort, and the result is even better than before. So, do your duty, but do not concern yourself with the result. This is the first instruction. Second instruction, the fruits of your actions are not for your enjoyment. To perform action is an integral part of human nature. So, having come into this world, we all have various duties that are determined by our family situation, social position, occupation, etc. While performing this action, we must remember that we are not the enjoyer of the results. The results are meant for the pleasure of God. We can take an example of a bed. Okay, if there is a bed, you are sleeping on the bed. The bed is not meant for itself, it is meant for you. So you are different from the bed. Then who is enjoying that bed? Who is enjoying sleep on that bed? You are enjoying. That means that object is meant for someone else. In the same way, we have a body, and there is Atman. So who is the enjoyer here? The Atman, the soul, or we can say the soul is none other than God. So God is the enjoyer. So that means the fruit of your action are not for your enjoyment, not for your sensual pleasure. This is for something. This is for a different people. So that is why Padma Purana says God is the matter of entire creation. God is the master of entire creation. All moving and non-moving beings are His servant. Okay, and so there is, what is the purpose of this non-living and non-living things? This is for the enjoyment of God. Okay, so then we can come to the third one, that even while working, give up the pride of doorstep. Okay, this is the third instruction. Even while you're working, give up the pride of doorstep. So Sri Krishna wants Arjuna to give up katrutva. What is that? It's called katrutva. Means in Sanskrit it's called katrutva. Actually, what is means? The ego of being the doer. The ego of being the doer. It's called katrutva. His he instructs Lord Krishna instructs Arjuna never to gaze after preconceived motive attached to his action, nor consider himself as the cause of the result from action, then why should we not consider that sometimes we may think then why should we not consider ourselves as the doer of those actions? The reason is that our senses, mind, and intellect are inert. God energized them with His power and put them at our disposal. Uh, as a result, help of the power we receive from Him, we are able to work. For example, okay, there's a wood log in the kitchen are inactive by themselves, but they get energized by someone's hand. Then they perform even difficult task. Okay, so in that way, we can say we should not consider we are the I am the doer. Okay, somebody was doing, but reason that is like God. All these thoughts are very we can say very nicely summarized in a popular Sanskrit words. Actually, that the meaning I am going to tell you. Whatever I had achieved and whatever I wish to achieve, I am not the doer of these. O Madhusodana, O Lord, you are the real doer, and you alone are the enjoyer of their result. So this is what. Next, there is a fourth one. For be attached, you see, throughout. No, no, actually, do not be attached to inaction. Although the nature of living being is to work, often a situation arises where work seems confusing. In such case, instead of running away from it, we must understand and implement the proper science of work, is explained by Sri Krishna to Arjuna. However, it is highlighted inappropriate if we consider work a laborious and burden to inaction. Okay, becoming attached to inaction is a never a solution, and it is clearly condemned by Sri Krishna. Then after that, Sri Krishna, after the Buddhi Yoga is over, then then Arjuna ask Sri Krishna, what is the definition of Sthita Pragya? So Arjuna asked, "Okay, Saba, what is the disposition of one who is situated in a divine consciousness? How does an enlightened person talk? How does he sit? How does he walk?" Then Sri Krishna begins answering Arjuna questions here, and continuing till the end of the second chapter. Each fragment is naturally drawn towards its whole. Just a piece of stone is drawn by the force of gravitation towards the earth. The individual soul is a fragment of God who is infinite, who is actually who is what is that? That is who is infinity bliss. Hence, the soul is fragment of the ocean of infinity bliss, and it experiences the natural urge of bliss. When it is strive to release the bliss of the soul from the God, it is called divine love. But when it ignores, it is a spiritual nature. It thinks of itself as the body, and seeks for a release the bliss of the body from the world. It's called lost. This world has been called Mrigatrishna. Mrigatrishna is actually in scripture. Okay, in this world is called Mrigatrishna, meaning like the mirrors seen by the deer. The sun ray reflecting on the hot desert sand and created an illusion of water for the deer. It thinks there is water ahead of it and runs to satisfy its thirst. But the more it runs towards the water, the more of mirage fades away. Its dull intellect cannot recognize that it is running after an illusion. Actually, the unfortunately, deer keeps chasing the illusory water and die on the desert sand. Similarly, the material energy, Maya, to create an illusion of happiness, and we run after that illusionary happiness in the hope of satisfying the thirst of our senses. But no matter how much we try, happiness keeps fading further away from us. Sure. This is the there is a concept in Garuda Purana. I will just translate that shloka. A king wishes to be the emperor of the whole world. Then the emperor aspires to be a celestial god, or we call it a Devaduta kind of things. A celestial god seeks to be Indra. The Indra, who is that Indra? The king of heaven. And Indra desire to be Brahma, the secondary creator. Yet the thirst of material enjoyment does not get satisfied. Sure. But when one learn to turn the mind away from the material pleasure and renounce the desire of senses, such a person comes in touch with the inner bliss of the soul and becomes transcendentally situated. The Kathovanesthas goes on to extend of saying one of the no, saying that one who has renounced desire becomes like God. This all about the yoga of intellect, or we call it the Buddhi Yoga.